Well, good afternoon, First Woodcut Scout Group, and Rick the Vick here, and we're going to start our photography badge, our Scouts Photographer Activity Badge. I've got a sheet here which I'll make sure gets emailed out to anybody that's interested. If you want to send an email either to Skip, we'll make sure that you get this, or just simply Google on the Scout page photography activity badge and you'll find it there. Now we're going to modify it a little bit, obviously, because we're doing it online. So to simplify it, if you look, it does give you two choices. One is producing 12 photographs with quite a breadth of subject matter, but as we're in lockdown and we can't go very far from our own homes, we're going to do the second option of the stills photography, which is to produce 6 black and white photographs on a particular theme. Now I'm going to upload several videos, be doing them live as well, and I'll just be explaining some of the aspects of how cameras work, some of the tips of photography, and how we're going to produce our 6 black and white photographs. And when you've produced your 6 black and white photographs, what I'm hoping is that you'll be able to print some of them out, a bit like these ones here. These are some of mine that I've done. These have just been printed out on a photocopy or an inkjet printer. But I hope also that you'll send me your photographs, and I've got my own web page, and we'll stick them up on there, and we'll have a little exhibition, photographic exhibition, of all the photographs that the Scouts have been doing. So a little bit of introduction. Why am I interested in photography? Well, before I became Rick the Vick, or before I became a vicar, I went to art college and trained as a professional photographer. And then I worked as a freelance commercial photographer in and around Slough for about 5 or 6 years before I started my training to become a vicar. However, I've been passionate about photography ever since I was about 11 or 12, and particularly I think it was my 13th birthday when my parents bought me my first proper SLR camera, single lens reflex camera, and the photography bug has bitten then. So I know some of you may already be interested in photography, you may be interested in photography with your parents, but if not, I hope you enjoy this, and I hope the bug bites for you, because photography has been a really important part of my life and keeps me occupied, and particularly now thinking about creative ways of getting involved with photography. So I hope you'll be able to join in and get your badge, have some fun and learn some photography skills as well. So let's just outline what the actual badge involves, and say you can go onto the Scout website and just Google Scouts Photography Activity Badge and you'll get the information there, but we can also email this out to you if you wish. And the task for the badge is to produce 6 black and white photographs based on a theme of your choice. Explain the steps you took to create them and the impact of using black and white and as alternative to colour images. And then there's several sections that we'll need to sort of look at. The first one is B. Show that you know the main settings of a digital camera or a smartphone camera. This should include focus and exposure control and flash settings. Explain the impact of shutter speed and aperture size on the image. C. Describe what accessories are available to use with digital cameras or smartphone cameras. D. Edit a selection of your images using editing software on your computer or using an app on your smartphone. This could include cropping, colour contrast or light levels. Explain what you have changed and how it's improved your image. E. Diagnose typical faults that happen at the photography or editing stages, such as over or underexposure and high or low contrast. Explain how to reduce camera shake and how to respond to subject movement. And finally, F. Show that you know how to care for your digital camera or smartphone. So that's what we're going to be doing with the photography badge, so I hope you enjoy it, and I hope it's a bit of fun. But first of all, let's just begin with a little bit of an introduction and a history of photography. So really, photography, the birth of photography happened in the 1800s, and depending who you ask who actually invented the photographic process that we have today, some people will say it was Henry Fox Talbot, and some people will say it was Louis Daguerre who invented the daguerreotype. Now, my money is on Fox Talbot. Firstly, because he was a Dorset man. He was born in Melbury in 1800. And a lot of his experimentation took place at a place called Laycock Abbey, which is in Wiltshire, which is not too far away. And really, Fox Talbot developed what we understand as the modern negative process. We don't really use negatives these days. They're these things. It was plastic or a type of celluloid, and you used a special chemical that put silver halide crystals on this, and then when light goes on it, you end up with an image. I'll explain more about that in another video. But really, Fox Talbot developed that. He developed a thing called the daguerreotype, but it was a lot harder to process. So really, my money is on Henry Fox Talbot, good Dorset man, who really developed what we understand as what became modern photography and led on to digital photography. And he was really doing this in the 1830s. Now, I love cameras and I collect them. I've collected them for years. So let's just have a little bit of a look at some kit that I've got behind me here. I've laid out some bits and pieces. All of these cameras here, they all work, and I have used them from time to time, though some of them not particularly recently. And certainly your parents or some of your grandparents may remember these cameras, or probably even have one tucked away in a drawer somewhere upstairs. So here's a very familiar camera to some. This was known as a box brownie. This is quite a modernish version of the box brownie, and this was developed by the Kodak company, the Kodak Eastern company in America, and this made photography very affordable to people. Lots of families had these cameras. It took film, this film here, which is called 120 film, 120 film, and it would go in the back of this camera, and you would get about 12 to 15 photographs on this. It was black and white, and then you would either take it off to a lab or a chemist and they would process your photographs for you, or you could do it at home. A bit later on, I'll actually put up a video of how to develop your own film at home, and we'll have a bit of fun with that. So that was the Kodak Brownie. I certainly took pictures on one of these when I was young, and maybe your grandparents or maybe even your parents can remember these cameras. You can still find them today in charity shops, and many of them still work, and they're great fun. And you can still buy this film, so you can have a go with that. The other popular old-fashioned cameras were these folding cameras. Always reminds me now when you're sort of driving along on the road and you see speed camera signs. That's where they've got this symbol from, because as you see, it has a folding bellows, and I haven't folded this one up for a while, but basically what you do is you can fold the camera up like this so that you could actually put it away and store it, though I haven't folded this one up for some time, so there we go. I think I've got to push that in. Anyhow, that would fold up and you could keep it with you. And here you've got your lens, and that 120 film would go in the back of the camera there. So they were folding cameras. Now, in the sort of 50s, 60s and 70s, you got sort of more modern cameras. A very famous camera company is a camera company called Leica. They're a German camera. And they made the Leica M series. I'm very lucky to have one of these. This is a film camera. This is a Leica M6. And these were known as rangefinder cameras, because if you can just see up here, you look through, there's an eyepiece here, you look through here, and then there's another little window here. And what happens is, in the rangefinder, there's two little patches, and you have to line up the image. You get a double image, and once you've lined it up and you've got a single image, you'll know you're in focus. And then also all the numbers here on the lens used to help with that. Very collectible cameras these are, and very beautiful to use. If you're lucky enough to have one of these, or your parents or grandparents, do let them show them to you at some point. But that was the rangefinder camera, and they really ran from about the 1930s, and modern Leicas are digital now, but that was the rangefinder camera. Then there was what we called SLR cameras, and this is probably what a lot of your parents will be familiar with. This was really the camera I learnt photography on as a student. This is an Olympus OM2, and it's a film camera. It's called a single lens reflex camera because it was quite clever, because unlike the rangefinder camera I've just shown you, you can actually look through the viewfinder at the back and you could see what you were looking through the lens. So whatever you looked through the back, you were actually seeing what the lens was seeing. And the way they did this, if I take this lens off, the other good thing was you could put different lenses on. So if you wanted sort of wide angle lenses or super telephoto lenses for doing wildlife photography, you could put different lenses on the front. But if you look very carefully in there, there is a mirror, and there is actually, I'm just going to press the button here, you'll see that mirror click up. There we go. Oh no, I'll turn it on. So that mirror would click up, and that's why it's called a single lens reflex camera, because there's one lens and there's a mirror at 45 degrees which allows you to see what the lens is seeing. And many people have these, and today again these cameras are still available, but they're often digital. Lots of students who are studying photography use these, and again you can buy these in second-hand shops, and many of them still work, and they're great fun to use. Finally, though this looks quite old-fashioned, this is actually a modern digital camera. This is a Fuji camera, and this is sort of one of the main digital cameras I use. Just like the single lens reflex camera, you can actually change the lenses on this. But if you look in here very carefully, rather than having a mirror, you can see that sort of shiny purple thing. That is actually a digital sensor. So that has got lots and lots of tiny, tiny little dots on it that are sensitive to light. And when you press the shutter button, they capture the image. And people often measure digital cameras in pixels. So this is 26 megapixels, 26 million pixels, 26 million dots on that little square. And that's what gives you the image that doesn't get stored on film, but these days all our images are stored on one of these things, SD cards or things like that. I should have mentioned that the film that goes in these cameras is this stuff, 35mm film cartridge, and you can still get these, and we'll have a look at how we process those later on. Now, you might not have cameras like this at home. You might have things like this. Now, some of you will have mobile phones that have cameras on, or you might have something like this in your home, which is a sort of small digital camera that your parents take on holiday. Now, you don't need any of this really sort of flash professional stuff to do the photography badge we're going to do. You can do it with your camera phone or with a little digital camera if you've got it. But if your mum or dad is lucky enough to have one of these larger digital cameras and they're happy to do the photography badge with you and show you how their camera works, then maybe you can take some pictures with them on that. Now, the final camera I'll show you here, this is a professional, what they call medium format camera. And if you remember this camera here, the Brownie that I showed you, this is sort of like a very grown-up version of this, because it takes the same film, this 120 film, which gives you a very big negative. They're the negatives there. And when you were working professionally, and these pictures got made up into big billboards and things that people would see when they drove their cars, you needed to have a very big image. And these are great fun because you sort of flip this up, you look through there. If I take this lens off there like that, you see, the focusing screen is in there. So I don't know if you can just see that there. So you focus your image through there, and then this back here has the film contained in it. And it's got like an old-fashioned handle that you would wind each picture up, and that's how you would take photographs. And I still use that today. I've been doing a black and white project with these, and you can see some of those on my website, which I'll send you the link. So lots of gear if you're into kit. But as I say, the important thing is you don't need anything like that to do this photography badge. As long as you've got a camera phone or something like this, that's fine. If not, and your mum and dad have got a digital camera and they're happy to work with you on the badge, then that will be great. We can do all of that together. So the task I need to set you really for today as part of the introduction is, first of all, you need to go and find which digital camera you're going to use. So if you've got a camera on your phone, then you can use that, or talk to your mum and dad. If they've got a digital camera and they're happy to lend it to you and teach you how to use it, then you can use your digital camera to take these photographs. The other thing you're going to have to find out how to do on your digital camera is to set your phone camera or your digital camera to black and white, because the pictures that we are going to do are going to be black and white. Now, sometimes there's two ways of doing this. Like on my digital camera here, I can actually go into the settings menu and I can set it so the camera will actually take black and white photographs. On your phone, it's a bit harder to do that. So what you have to do is take colour pictures on your phone, and then when you go to your sort of phone settings to look at your pictures, there's normally a way you can edit them and you can turn them into black and white pictures that way. So that's really your first task, Scouts, is to find your camera and to learn how to make it take photographs, black and white photographs, okay? And then the other thing I'd like you to have a think about is what particular theme your 6 photographs are going to be. Now, what photographers do when they're working on a project is they'll set themselves a theme. So I'm doing black and white landscape. And what they'll actually do is they'll take lots and lots of photographs on that theme, and in the end they will just choose the best. So we're not just going to take 6 photographs. I hope over the next couple of weeks or so, next few weeks, you'll take lots of photographs in black and white, and in the end you'll decide which 6 pictures you're going to choose as your best pictures. And you need to have a think about your theme. You might want to experiment and try some different themes as well. So for example, you might want to do portraits. If you're at home with your family and providing they're up for it, you might want to take portrait photographs of your family and maybe your pets as well, and that might be your 6 photographs. But you're going to need to practice taking lots of portraits to get that, and I will be uploading, we'll do a video on how to do portraits. You might want to do some documentary photography, and in a sense that is thinking about, you might want to document the lockdown. What's it like in your house at the moment as a lockdown? And you might want to do a series of pictures that tells a story about what it's like being locked down in your house. And in the end you'll choose 6 pictures, 6 black and white pictures, which will show that. The other thing you might want to do is to do some landscape and some outdoor photography. If you are able to get out and go for a walk once a day for exercise, you could take your camera with you and take some black and white pictures then. And one of the nice things, if you're used to doing the same walk, there's a little circular walk I'm doing in Handley most days. You can take the camera and just keep photographing that walk, and in the end you could choose 6 pictures from all the ones that you've taken of that walk that really shows that area that you're walking. There's some other themes that I'll think about a bit later on, but the first thing to do is to find your camera, work out how to get it onto black and white, and then start practicing and taking some photographs. Now, as I say, if you go onto the Scout website and do a search for the photography badge, you'll get all the information here. But we can also get this emailed out to you. If you email Skip, who I know is watching, afternoon Skip, if you email Skip, I will send this to him, and he will cascade it out to everybody so they've got the information, and then we'll work out a way how you can get your photographs to me. So Scouts, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoy doing this photography badge. Find your camera, find out how to get it into black and white, and let's start taking some photographs. Take care everyone, God bless.